Stuck in a lifeboat and drowning. My perfect boyfriend Jerry won't acknowledge his anger. Meanwhile, Carl's "I could steal you if he dips" revealed my yearning for more than just not abusive. How do I face breaking up when our daughter adores him? This requires a lot of background information. I will refer to my boyfriend as Jerry, 26 years old. Our mutual friend is named Carl, 33 years old. The father of my child, 34 years old, is Robert. My daughter, nearly 4 years old, is named Sophia. This is a long post, so a brief summary is provided here. Summary: Jerry and I entered into a relationship quickly after I left my abusive partner, Robert. We have now been together for 3.5 years. Robert has changed and is a wonderful co-parent. However, he now works out of town, leaving me without childcare except for Jerry and Jerry's mother. I work unconventional hours, earn significantly more money, and keep our entire life afloat, but I feel overwhelmed. The only thing Jerry excels at is loving Sophia, although he is quick to anger in his parenting. I ignored every red flag because my only standard was that he was not abusive. Unfortunately, his personality has all but disappeared over the past year. I have repeatedly asked him how I can help, whether it is depression, and I receive no answers. His personality is like a brick wall, and he contributes minimally, providing only 30% of the income and being a decent stepfather. I have been friends with Carl for 4 years and recently developed feelings for him. However, I do not truly see it going anywhere, even if I were single. This experience has made me realize that I deserve more than simply not being abused. I deserve to have genuine effort put forth for me, yet I feel stuck and unsure how to navigate the situation from here. The real story begins now. I have always been in relationships with older men, for better or worse, since I was 17 years old. Jerry is the first person I have been with who is my own age. My relationship with Robert was very emotionally manipulative, primarily due to his drug use. I was only 21 years old when I became pregnant early in our relationship. I was naive and did not understand how bad the situation was until a few months into my pregnancy. I essentially left as soon as I healed from my C-section. If I had not become pregnant, I believe our relationship would have lasted only a few months. Robert and I despised each other for about a year, which made co-parenting incredibly challenging. However, when Sophia was approximately 1.5 years old, things began to improve. Now we are great friends. He has been sober for 2 years and is an active, loving father. We currently share custody 50-50. I began speaking with Jerry shortly after leaving Robert. He was my coworker, and I had known him for about a year by that time. Importantly, he never flirted with me or crossed any lines while I was with Robert. We became closer friends when I returned from maternity leave, and a mutual friend informed me that Jerry had feelings for me and suggested I discuss my expectations for our relationship with him. I invited Jerry to sit in my car after work, being very straightforward and honest with him. Paraphrasing, here is what I communicated: I understand that you have feelings for me, and I also feel there is something between us. However, I need you to understand that my life is extremely chaotic right now. I am a new mother. Sophia is only 4 months old. I am a new single mother and responsible for everything financially. I returned to work 3 weeks after giving birth to support us. Robert dislikes me, and I will likely have to take him to court. I genuinely do not believe I can handle being in a relationship right now. We can choose to remain strictly friends, wait to see where things go, or cut off all contact and be just coworkers. The choice is yours. Jerry expressed that he would love to see where things could lead. This surprised me because I thought he should be running in the opposite direction. I could not believe that someone wanted me. I thought I would never find love again after becoming a single mother at a young age before achieving any of my dreams. Foolishly, we continued to talk, and by the time my daughter was 7 months old, we were officially a couple. Robert disapproved of this and consistently tried to make our lives difficult, but we persevered. Regarding Jerry's background, he was 23 years old, living with his mother who had not held a job since he was a child, and sharing a home with 4 roommates. Their house was filthy and their animals were neglected. He did not possess a driver's license, which was problematic in such an unwalkable area. Additionally, he had not been in a romantic relationship since breaking up with his first love at age 18. In hindsight, all of these were red flags, but I perceived him as a sweet, lovable, misunderstood individual held back by his family. While that assessment was true, he showed no desire to change his life circumstances until we became a couple. After enduring an incredibly challenging 1.5 years with Robert, including a traumatic birth and postpartum phase, I found myself in an emotionally vulnerable state. However, I began to take care of myself and Sophia effectively, feeling quite accomplished. Jerry was willing to wait for me and attended to my needs. He never argued with me and agreed with everything I said. He loved my Sophia from the moment he met her. We enjoyed dates and concerts and did many fun activities, both with Sophia and without her when Robert had her. We moved in together in less than a year. The relationship continued smoothly. I was amazed that someone never argued with me and was not controlling. Jerry wanted to be involved in my daughter's life. I had to teach him how to drive, how to manage bills, and many other aspects of adulting, but he was managing. Now let's introduce Carl into the story. Carl was our boss. On my very first day at work, well before I became pregnant, I felt an instant connection with Carl. We shared all the same interests, appreciated the same music, and had a matching sense of humor. I looked forward to shifts because we laughed until we cried, but that was the extent of it. Carl was also friends with Jerry, although company policy prevented us from socializing outside of work hours. Fast forward about a year and a half after Jerry and I moved in together. Robert and I were on good terms, he had become sober, and I was pleasantly surprised by how he had become friends with Jerry. Jerry had taken on the role of a second father to my daughter, who loves him dearly and has no recollection of a time without him. By this point, we had been together for approximately 2.5 years. However, Jerry's work performance began to decline. He became one of the worst employees. Everyone started asking me what was wrong, but I had no idea. I attempted to discuss it with him daily, asking if he was struggling with depression or if I had done something to upset him. Yet I received no answers. I mentioned multiple times that perhaps the responsibilities of adulthood, including paying bills and parenting, might not align with what he envisioned for himself. I suggested that he may have preferred experiencing his early 20s differently before jumping into a serious commitment. He insisted that this was not the issue and repeatedly stated, "I would never leave you, no matter what you did." In retrospect, that was a red flag. By this time, Carl had left our workplace for another job and our friendship had remained intact. We spent time with him outside of work on several occasions since he was no longer our boss. We continued a group chat for months, but eventually Jerry stopped participating. While he continued to read our conversations, he did not respond, and it became just Carl and me communicating. Eventually, we began texting privately. Jerry was aware of this but did not see any cause for concern. When Jerry left his job, he began working at Carl's new job where they were allowed to be friends, so our friendship remained unchanged. However, Jerry still would not participate in group conversations and primarily spoke with Carl at work, as he was shutting down communication with anyone outside of the workplace. Carl and I, on the other hand, were in constant communication, discussing music, television shows, work, and life in general. As Jerry's work ethic declined and he changed jobs, taking a pay cut no less, everything seemed to shift. Sophia was in her terrible twos, making her challenging to parent. Jerry transitioned from being a loving and devoted stepfather to someone who was perpetually irritated by her. Yes, young children can be annoying, especially at that age, but his levels of annoyance became incessant. I stopped organizing dates and outings, and we ceased doing them altogether. Jerry stopped participating in chores, and he showed little interest in doing anything together. If I did not plan or address an issue, it simply would not get addressed. Our intimacy waned because the only effort he made for private time was half-hearted, like grabbing my entire body in the middle of the night while I was trying to sleep or pressing against me in the morning when I needed to get to work shortly. During ideal moments, he remained distant and uninterested in me, often spending time on his computer without engaging in conversation. During this period, I spoke with Carl more frequently and began developing feelings for him, although I did not initially acknowledge them. I was in denial. We never crossed any lines or flirted, we only communicated frequently about various topics. Jerry and I shared a few decent months together. It didn't feel the same as before, but I attributed it to being busy and caught up in life. I maintained a routine and lived on autopilot. We enjoyed a couple of trips and some fun experiences, but the spark never reignited. It merely felt like traveling with a platonic best friend. He continued to neglect addressing the areas in which he struggled in daily life. We hosted a small Christmas gathering with friends on Christmas Eve since Sophia was with Robert until Christmas morning. Jerry hardly glanced at me during the event, which was fine since I scarcely acknowledged him. We chatted with our friends and enjoyed quality time with everyone. We played a board game together, during which Carl and I engaged in deep discussions about life. As the alcohol flowed, we became slightly emotional while discussing our experiences. Meanwhile, Jerry was oblivious, talking to our other friends. Then it was Carl's turn in the game, and we did not realize for a full 2 minutes that it was time to play. Upon noticing how close I was to Carl's face and the intensity of our conversation, I became aware of the group's gaze. I made eye contact with a friend who appeared to understand the significance of the moment. Carl lightheartedly mentioned, "Sorry, we were trauma dumping." Everyone laughed, including Jerry. Although it did not seem to affect Jerry much, I realized at that moment that I had feelings for Carl. Thankfully, no one brought it up afterward. I attempted to suppress these feelings. We continued our regular texting, but nothing significant occurred, and he remained friends with Jerry, speaking to him daily at work. There were periods when we would not communicate for a few weeks, and then a conversation would spark the connection again, but it remained platonic. This pattern persisted for months. One weekend, a group of work friends planned a night out at a bar. Since Sophia was with Robert, I called Jerry to invite him. He expressed feeling tired and preferred to stay home to play video games, but he told me I was free to go. This was not unusual, as he knew many of my work friends, and our group included a mix of men and women with whom we often hung out. Upon my arrival, I found Carl among the group. It was the first time he had seen most of us since he had switched jobs nearly a year prior. Everyone was thrilled to see him, and we ended up sitting in a circle in a parking lot for hours after the bars closed, chatting until 5 a.m. when I offered to drive a friend home at the end of the night. She, having known Carl since childhood, remarked, "Babe, I see that sparkle in your eye when you look at my friend. I am 99% sure it is mutual. I don't know what you're going to do about that, but I figured I'd let you know." The following week, Carl and I barely spoke. However, Robert revealed that he had received an amazing job opportunity, which would require him to work out of town half the year. I encouraged him to take the opportunity, stating that I would figure out childcare. I work mostly evenings and weekends and earn a strong income, so getting a day job during daycare hours would likely result in a pay cut. Jerry offered to rearrange his work schedule to assist on some days, while his mother volunteered to help on others. My family and Robert's family were not viable options as they were essentially non-existent. It has been about 6 months since this time. My relationship with Jerry has plummeted. I believe the stress of constant parenting has taken its toll. The issues I had with him before have intensified significantly. Throughout our 3-year relationship, he has never acknowledged or admitted to struggling with depression, anxiety, or any personal issues. Despite my efforts to talk to him about everything at least 2 or 3 times each month, I feel as though I am speaking to a wall. He either responds with "I don't know" or breaks down, telling me how terrible he is and that I deserve better, expressing a self-pity that goes nowhere. Nothing changes or improves as a result. I consistently ask if I have done anything wrong or if there are any issues with me, creating space for open communication, but he always insists I am perfect and can do no wrong. At this point, that response is unsettling. I am sure I make mistakes regularly. I want him to talk to me. This environment has become increasingly frustrating. Without Robert's support, I truly cannot catch a break and I feel overwhelmed. I acknowledge that I have been privileged to share custody with Robert, allowing me some time to rest. However, now I am drowning. I work longer hours than Jerry, earn double his income, and have a second job coaching high school softball, which keeps me busy. I am the only one who cleans the house, buys groceries, goes to the store, manages most of the bills, makes appointments, and organizes everything in our lives. At this point, I have no one else to help with childcare. As a bartender, I earn between 25 and 50 an hour in tips and am planning to re-enroll in online college for the upcoming fall semester. I cannot afford the 15 to 17 hourly rate of a day job without a degree, coupled with maintaining childcare expenses and covering 70% of our bills in this expensive area. If we were to break up, I would be responsible for all the bills. Rent is relatively affordable for my area, posing a challenge as I would struggle to cut costs. My family lives an hour away and lacks the space to accommodate me should I move back home. Additionally, I cannot qualify for assisted housing because it is determined by last year's income, and I earn too much as a bartender. While others in my area manage as single parents on lower salaries, I have become accustomed to my current income over the past 5 years and cannot fathom altering my entire lifestyle or budgeting. I could potentially ask Robert for financial assistance, but I know he already pays child support and I would hesitate to request help beyond childcare costs. Furthermore, I deeply regret entering into a relationship so quickly after having a newborn. Sophia adores Jerry, despite his constant exasperation with her. She longs for his attention and playtime, which is heartbreaking for me. I feel like the situation is more complicated than if he were her biological father. Robert and I have managed to heal and become friends while co-parenting. However, if Jerry and I were to break up, he would not be entitled to shared custody. If I enter into another relationship, I would not allow that person to meet my child for at least a year and would wait at least 2 to 3 years before moving in together. But I digress. We grow and learn from our experiences. I also grapple with feelings of guilt for relying on Jerry and his mother for childcare. While they love Sophia as their own, it would feel terrible to leave after such support and say, "Thanks for everything, goodbye." I worry about how this would impact Sophia, considering she has grown to love Jerry over the past couple of years. I am aware she is not yet old enough to grasp the full impact, but it still weighs on my heart. Currently, we are 3.5 years into our relationship. I have felt unhappy about the same concerns for over a year. Just in the past 3 months, I have even contemplated breaking up with him, although it still feels like an unfeasible option. I feel incredibly trapped, yet I am not happy. Another point to note is that he is not unkind to me. He is not emotionally abusive, manipulative, or controlling. He does not treat me poorly, he simply does nothing. It has taken me this long and a lot of healing to realize that being non-abusive is not sufficient for a fulfilling relationship. My standards entering this relationship were exceedingly low. Yet, I have come to understand that I require more than just the bare minimum of not being mistreated to find happiness. Who would have thought? As for Carl, our communication has fluctuated over the past 6 months, remaining only as friends. I rarely see him in person anymore, but when we do, that unspoken connection persists. One day we found ourselves in a deep text conversation, during which Carl opened up about a girl he had been involved with 2 years ago but had never shared the details of their relationship with anyone. Although we knew about the situation, we were unaware of how it concluded. It had been a messy entanglement, primarily due to her actions as she returned to her ex. I explained to Carl that, while she had treated him poorly, I understood her perspective given that she had built her entire life with her previous partner, and it would be difficult for her to leave for him. He expressed appreciation for my insight, stating he had never fully considered her standpoint. I shared that I sympathized with him, feeling trapped in my situation while longing for change but unable to leave since our life together was so established. I apologized for discussing my feelings, given his friendship with Jerry. He reassured me, saying, "No, I understand." I perceived that he had not been putting much effort into anything lately and questioned how one could feel fulfilled in such circumstances. He casually mentioned, "By the way, you know Andre, a fellow employee at their workplace, is planning to pursue you if you and Jerry break up." We shared a laugh about this since Andre had no realistic chance. We playfully teased each other for a while about how Andre needed to temper his expectations due to his arrogant personality and lack of appealing qualities. I stated, "Yes, I will never again risk pursuing a man with a history of inconsistency or laziness." Carl then said, "I cannot lie, I shared the same mindset as Andre for a while. I was fully prepared to pursue you if the opportunity ever arose because I know I have my act together and would actually have a chance. But I realized that is not a cool thing to do." Cue my heart stopping in both dreadful and slightly exhilarating ways. Great, all these suspicions confirm that the feelings are mutual. To clarify, Carl really does have his life together. He emerged from a lengthy relationship a few years ago on amicable terms with no hard feelings. Though he had that situationship we discussed and some casual dates, he is content being single and does not chase after women or engage in casual flings. He owns a home, makes excellent money, and provides impressive benefits as a general manager at a high-end restaurant. He has stock investments and substantial savings. He travels often completely on his own. He has managed to create a fulfilling life for himself. While not exceptionally attractive, he is by no means unattractive, and truthfully, I prioritize chemistry and personality over looks. He genuinely seems to have everything going for him. Since that conversation about a month ago, we have continued texting regularly until a few days ago. We have never truly flirted or crossed any boundaries through text, nor have we done so in person, aside from some light teasing among friends. The connection remains palpable in person, yet we do not act upon it. I resolve to take a break from communicating with him, aiming to avoid any potential boundary crossing until I can sort out my life. I have not blocked him but told him I needed time to focus on my many responsibilities and would not be responding for a while. Regarding the Carl situation, if I were to hypothetically break up with Jerry tomorrow and figure out my life with Sophia and how to manage finances, if Carl were to ask me out, I would respond similarly to how I did with Jerry years ago. However, I would set firm boundaries, stating that my life is currently too overwhelming for a relationship. I would say to ask again when my life is more stable and I have healed. It could take years, so I would advise him not to wait for me, but I would express a desire to remain friends without any romantic involvement for now. Ultimately, this situation has opened my eyes to the realization that I deserve better. Someone who has their life together, is consistent and trustworthy, and whom I know to be a genuinely good person, because I have been their friend for so long wants to pursue me. Initially, I was infatuated with Jerry because I thought no one would want me unless they wished to manipulate or control me like Robert did when he was not sober. I discarded all my standards and overlooked every red flag and inconsistency because I believed he had too kind a heart to hurt me intentionally. While that remains true, he has a genuinely kind soul. He is also too, I do not know, stubborn, oblivious, lazy, depressed, and unwilling to seek help. I genuinely do not know what he is. However, whatever his issue is, he fails to recognize that he is indirectly causing me significant pain by putting forth such minimal effort. A friend once asked him if we were okay because I seemed unhappy, and he told her, "I don't know what you're talking about, everything is perfect." And here I am coming to the realization that I could have so much more. At this point, I would honestly prefer to be alone, but Sophia complicates everything. Additionally, I still love Jerry deeply. I care for him as if he were my best friend. While I am no longer in love with him, I love him nonetheless, and I do not want to witness him suffer. He would likely move back in with his mother, neglecting any motivation to improve his life or circumstances. In fact, he was not doing that before me or during our relationship unless I guided him through it. How could I bear to push him further into whatever darkness envelops him? We also planned to attend a concert 8 months ago, involving myself, Carl, and Jerry. Carl organized it, proudly declaring that he would be the third wheel because I am the only friend he has who enjoys this band. The concert is coming up in 2 weeks, and I am extremely apprehensive about being around both of them for those 2 days. This arrangement was made before I realized I had feelings for Carl and before Jerry and I reached this unfortunate situation. So, to summarize, I feel overwhelmed from all sides. I am uncertain how to navigate from this point onward. Story 2. My roommate acted sick for attention and ignored every kind gesture I made, then blocked me when I said we shouldn't live together again. Why are you uncomfortable with my boyfriend using the bathroom? She responded. Tell him to hold it. I can't wait to escape. I have been wanting to find a place to express my thoughts and feelings about this for a while. My roommate despises me and I do not understand why. I have done nothing but treat her kindly, yet she suddenly changed her behavior towards me. We were roommates last year and she was always somewhat peculiar. I should have recognized the signs not to live with her again this year, but I ignored them. I thought that since she wasn't very messy and did not host parties, she would be an acceptable roommate. I was mistaken, and her behavior has only deteriorated. Before we lived together, we connected on Zme and communicated for months. We discovered many shared interests and agreed on which items we would be bringing to the dorm. We also stated that we wanted to be friends, not merely roommates. We discussed plans to explore the campus, shop together, watch movies, shows, and anime together, and generally spend time together. That turned out to be a false promise. On orientation day, she asked if she could attend the same session so we could meet in person for the first time. When I arrived, I texted her expressing my nerves and what was happening. She acted as if she had not arrived yet. Although she did not verbalize this, her actions suggested it. When I continued to update her on what was occurring, she informed me that she had been there for a while. I inquired how long she had been there, and she replied that it had been at least 45 minutes. I asked her why she had not said anything, emphasizing that we could have been together this whole time. Her response indicated that she simply did not feel like talking to me. This was precisely the reason we planned to attend the same orientation. That was my first warning sign. Moving forward to when we lived together, she hardly brought any of the items she had promised. Whenever I inquired about when she would bring them, she continually lied, claiming she had forgotten them at her house. Weeks passed and I ended up purchasing everything myself. Fast forward to October, I bought tickets and food to see Five Nights at Freddy's because she is a big fan. Then on Halloween, I organized an elaborate plan for us to go trick-or-treating in a beautiful historic neighborhood and then dine along the Riverwalk. When we returned to the dorm, I asked her if she had enjoyed herself. She responded somewhat positively, expressing that she felt uncomfortable the entire time and wanted to leave early. Keep in mind, I had asked her multiple times if she was tired or preferred to do something else, and she always declined. I was baffled. We began texting one evening, and she candidly admitted that she often pretends to be sick or depressed just so people inquire about her well-being. She said her favorite part is ignoring them and turning them away while they worry for her when nothing is wrong. I lost count of how many times I had worried about her, so I ceased asking if she was okay or if she wanted me to prepare food for her. A month or two later, San Japan took place in San Antonio. On the few occasions we texted, I mentioned how exciting it was that some well-known voice actors would be attending. I expressed my desire to go but stated I did not want to attend alone. I wasn't really intending to invite her, just sharing my thoughts, but she seemed to go along with it and agreed it sounded cool. 2 days later, she returned late and texted me that she had gone and acquired numerous items, including autographs from 2 voice actors I had mentioned. It felt as though she was flaunting it in my face. I responded enthusiastically and half-jokingly remarked that I wished she had told me she was going because I would have loved to join her. Even if we were not together the entire time, just knowing that someone I knew was there would have made me feel safer. Her reply was, "LOL, sorry, I forgot to ask if you wanted to come. I am kind of brain dead." Fast forward to December. I ordered her a very expensive Christmas gift and paid an extra $30 to ensure it arrived at her home before Christmas. While we were on break, I reminded her every few days to check her mail, but she consistently told me she forgot by the end of the day. The same happened when it finally arrived. She kept forgetting to collect it. It wasn't until January 5th that she sent me a picture expressing her gratitude and stating that she had just opened it. I did not get overly angry with her, even though I was furious because it demonstrated how little my efforts and gift mattered to her. I remember mentioning this, and everything spiraled downward from that point. She began ignoring me and only responded after hours or days. Fast forward to fall 2024. We are roommates again because, well, I decorate the entire place, am a clean freak, and she does not have to lift a finger for anything. I decided to share the room with her because I thought we might still be friends and she was not loud or extremely messy. At the start of the year, she continued to ignore me, behaving as if I were contagious. She never came out of her room when I was around, and if I emerged, she would hurry back to her room. She rarely left her space and always locked her door, even if she was merely going to retrieve paper towels from the kitchen 5 steps away. I decorated for all the holidays and seasons, but she never commented on any of it. When I invited her to do things, my messages went unanswered for days. She began hoarding trash in her room. She would have trash bags full of food and garbage in her room, and an unpleasant odor began to permeate the air. I genuinely have no idea why. Then she stopped using the restroom trash can as well. I was not actively inspecting it, but you know how one can tell when a woman is on her period because of the wrappers and rolled-up feminine products in there. Well, she stopped using the trash can and took all of that waste to her room. It seemed as if she did not want me to realize that she lived there too. Moreover, she never took out her trash. Only when her dad came to pick her up on weekends did he take out her trash for her. I refrained from saying anything because I felt that was precisely what she desired, and I expected she would simply ignore me anyway. Fast forward to around February. I started dating someone. He occasionally visited the dorm, but mostly just for a few minutes to pick me up for dates. When we spent time here, it primarily consisted of watching movies or shows in my room or working on a puzzle in the living room. He only stayed overnight about 3 or 4 times due to weather or if he was tired after work. He had to shower here a couple of times because he smelled from work, and there was no way I was letting him sit or lie on any furniture without first showering. When he stayed over, he was very respectful and considerate of the fact that someone else was living there. He was never loud, never left a mess, and always kept the bathroom clean. One day, Lane messaged me expressing her discomfort with my boyfriend using our shower and toilet, but she would not disclose the reason. I knew it wasn't a hygiene issue. She was accustomed to having men use the same facilities since she has her father, brothers, and I believe she had a boyfriend in the past as well, so that could not have been the issue. I explained that he needed to shower after work and mentioned that there was not much I could do when he needed to use the toilet. Jokingly, I asked her if she wanted me to tell him to hold it. Her response was yes, and she was serious. I apologized that she felt uncomfortable about it, but I reiterated that I could not change the situation. She did not take that well. Following that encounter, she stopped showering and using the restroom. She had not showered very frequently before, but now she completely ceased washing herself. It could be the hottest day of the year with beads of sweat on her body, raining outside, or even during the sandstorm with fierce winds and dirt blowing everywhere. None of those conditions encouraged her to shower. She began going home more on weekends. I assumed she was showering while she was there, but still. Even in regard to using the toilet, there would be days when I was not in class, spending several days without leaving the dorm, and she would only use it once or twice in the middle of the night when I think she believed I was asleep. She never brushed her teeth either, and I often wondered if she did any of that in her room. Fast forward to around April. I sent a long and respectful message indicating that I did not believe we were compatible as roommates for the next semester, and informing her that I had been in discussions with someone for a while, and we agreed to live together. Lane pretended to be indifferent about it but immediately blocked me on everything: Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, both my accounts on Discord, Zme, and even Spotify, as if she were not as unconcerned as she claimed. Eventually, in late April or early May, we both began packing our belongings. She was slower than I was. On a Friday, Lane's dad came to pick her up to go home for the weekend, but before they left, he used the restroom. I was in my room, but I heard him emerge, cursing and sounding disgusted. He exclaimed, "Are you kidding me with this? What is all of this garbage doing here?" He was referring to my period products. He was not talking about my pad wrappers and rolled-up pads and toilet paper, which I had disposed of in the restroom trash can. I do not know how he taught his daughter to dispose of used feminine hygiene products since she brings all her trash to her room, but I was taught to wrap the pads in toilet paper and place them in the restroom trash can. There was no way I was going to carry them to my room and let them sit there for over a week in the space where I sleep. That was what he was upset about. After he said that, he removed the trash can. As a result, we did not have a trash can in the restroom for weeks. There is so much more that I could share, but I don't want to type forever. I cannot wait to have a new roommate next semester. Lane, if you see this, I do not know what I did to you, but you are the laziest, rudest, most ungrateful, spoiled, and unhygienic person I have ever met. I feel sorry for the person who has to share a room with you next. I hope you realize how much effort I put into maintaining the dorm, as I guarantee you will never have someone do as much as I did. Story 3. My fiancé Nick took a gas station crackhead to lunch and sent her a duck pic, After my gut feeling led me to his phone, I found messages that left me in disbelief. How could he choose a 53-year-old over our family? Now I'm questioning everything. Do I leave and disappear with our child? Hello, everyone's. I find myself in an emotional state and genuinely do not know what else to do. I hope that by writing everything down, I can begin to understand the path I am on. I will share a story about my relationship and the recent events that have taken place. I am unsure where to begin, so I will attempt to provide a brief backstory. A 31-year-old female, was in a serious relationship right after high school. I moved several states away from home and remained in that relationship for 8 years. He was controlling and jealous of my friends, and eventually I had enough. In 2019, I met my current fiancé, a 32-year-old male whom I will refer to as Nick, and we began dating in 2020. At the beginning of 2021, we discovered that we were expecting a child. We had a lengthy discussion about what we wanted to do, and it was clear that, despite the timing not being ideal, we were in love, wanted a family, and were ready and excited to welcome our wonderful baby. I have always been infatuated with Nick. I would genuinely do anything for him and support him in every way. He enjoys spending time with his friends, and I have no problem with that. I trust and love him completely. However, there have been a few incidents where he has messaged other women in a flirtatious manner. We discussed it and I expressed my discomfort. He understood and we moved past it. Our relationship was built from the ground up. We learned about each other's likes and dislikes and we were in sync. Or so I thought. As a side note, I understand that many women claim to have heightened instincts and can sense when something is wrong, and in my case this is true. I can always sense when something is off, even if everyone else seems to be acting normal. It is genuine. Women are adept at reading situations, scanning the room, and observing your mannerisms. You may think you are acting normally, and perhaps you are, but somehow we just know. For about a week, I felt that something was not right. I confided in Nick, expressing that I felt something was coming, though I couldn't pinpoint what it was. He dismissed me, kissed me on the head, and assured me that everything was fine. This conversation occurred on a Tuesday. The week continued on, and everything appeared normal with work and family outings. We attended a parade and other events with the family and discussed future plans, including wedding venues. However, I still could not shake the uneasy feeling in my throat. When the following Tuesday arrived, I felt even more unsettled. I was physically ill to the point of vomiting. There was a strong sensation, a lump in my throat, and my head felt off. I decided to stay home that day as I was not feeling well. That morning, Nick and I had an intimate moment and he left for work afterward. It was when I physically stood up out of bed that all of my feelings surged, causing me to vomit. I could not shake the sensation. When Nick returned home, he seemed a bit distant. He knew I was unwell, yet he did not inquire about my condition and barely spoke. The sensation I had been feeling intensified, leading me to consider checking his phone to ease my mind. I reasoned that if I found nothing, I would feel foolish for looking. On Wednesday morning, while he was in the restroom, I quickly grabbed his phone. I went to the messages and noticed something unusual. One of the phone numbers had its notifications on silent. I opened it and my heart dropped. I hurriedly recorded a video as I scrolled through the messages, feeling frozen in disbelief. I placed the phone back where I found it. When Nick came out, he kissed me and left without my saying a word. I didn't want to explode right away. I needed to gather more information. This situation made no sense. I acted nonchalant, not wanting him to suspect that I knew anything. First, I searched for the phone number online and discovered it belonged to a 53-year-old female. It seemed absurd. The explicit pictures I saw in the messages confirmed that she was indeed 53. I found her on Facebook and noted that we had mutual friends. There was a photo of her having lunch with my fiancé on her page. I proceeded to the next picture. I am not trying to be unkind, but she wore a skin-tight black club dress that clung to her heavily built physique, and she was barefoot on a sidewalk. It looked like something from a vintage film featuring a 50-year-old escort. My jaw dropped. What did I do next? I decided to create a t-shirt featuring her picture and ordered it for my fiancé. It arrived on Friday. The design looked similar to those cheap gas station shirts that say Brooklyn, but instead showcased a black and white photo of a strikingly unattractive woman. It was certainly an embarrassing shirt to wear. She was indeed a winner in all respects. I got my child ready for daycare, took him to school, and then called Nick. He answered cheerfully and asked if everyone got to school safely. That is when I asked, "Hey Nick, I have a question." He responded, "Yeah, babe, what's up?" I inquired about a person I will refer to as Pixie Dust, using both her first and last name. He was silent for a brief moment, the kind of silence where you feel the tension as he searched for the right words. Then he stuttered, claiming she was just an old lady interested in purchasing a car. I asked, "Oh really, you didn't go out to eat with her?" He stumbled again, attempting to say, "Yeah, I took her to lunch for work." Interesting. As a side note, I do not have a problem with him going to lunch with other women for work. This happens often. However, it is a topic we usually discuss. Hey babe, what did you do today? Oh, I had lunch with so-and-so about the upcoming deal. No issues there, but I had never heard about this lunch until now, and according to Facebook, it had occurred clearly on Friday while today was Wednesday. He said, babe, you're being silly. I will call you back shortly. I just need to deliver something. I did not answer any of his calls. There were 15 in total. When he arrived home around 8 in the evening, he said nothing and proceeded to sit on the couch watching television. I put our child to bed around 10:30 and came back into the living room. I asked Nick if there was anything he wanted to talk about. He initially denied any wrongdoing until I stated that I knew I had the facts. I had to pressure him into admitting the lunch meeting. He fabricated a story about the woman having an issue with her car and ultimately claimed he met her at a gas station. The gas station? Are you telling me that you were approached by one of the gas station's troubled patrons? I know this might come across as superficial, but my fiancé and I are both attractive individuals. People notice that about us. This is why I am even more confused. There are beautiful older women out there, but this woman had clearly not aged well. She wore a club dress while barefoot on a sidewalk with a cheap black wig and bangs. I asked him what in the world, while also mocking his attraction to this woman, as he could genuinely attract anyone based on looks alone. I have even had men compliment him, stating that he resembles a Greek god. This opinion has come from multiple straight men randomly. Nick struggled to justify himself. Eventually, he admitted to the lunch meeting and revealed that they had FaceTimed as well. He met her last Thursday and they had lunch that Friday during work hours. I don't know anything beyond that as he was not forthcoming with details. He expressed confusion about how things unfolded, appearing baffled. When I pressed him about whether there were messages, he initially claimed there were none. I told him I believed he was lying. He eventually admitted to having messages but asserted they were insignificant and that he deleted them. I demanded he get his phone. He hesitated, stating that it was pointless. That triggered me. What was he hiding? Why was he being so defensive? I insisted he hand over his phone, and when I accessed it, the messages were gone, but I was able to retrieve the deleted file. I found plenty of messages. As I scrolled, he acted strangely, trying to manage the phone as if I did not know how to use it. I took over, and to my dismay, I found a picture of my fiancé's genitals. What on earth? This revelation changed everything. I am weary of typing out this narrative. There is more to this story, and if there is interest, I can provide further details later. My heart feels utterly shattered. He claims he does not know why this occurred or what led to it. He insists that they did not have sexual intercourse or engage in oral sex. But that doesn't add up. He sent her a picture of his genitals while at work and then took her out to lunch, yet nothing happened. What could they possibly have discussed? Did he tell her she resembled an aging gargoyle? Did he really have a physical encounter with this 53-year-old woman who is merely a year younger than his mother? I am at a loss, considering our relationship has been satisfactory. We engage in intimacy at least once a day consistently for 5 years. That's truly remarkable. We have a 3-year-old child who is funny, beautiful, and enjoys family activities. How could he do this to me, and how could he subject our child to such betrayal? He genuinely seems remorseful, more than I have ever seen in him. He wants to seek therapy, though I am aware that many express this sentiment only when it is too late. I can see in his eyes that he is beginning to realize how exhausted I am and that if we separate, I will return home. I am uncertain about my next steps. Am I the one in the wrong for wanting to pack up and disappear? To take my child back home, several states away, and simply vanish from social media? I am just incredibly drained and heartbroken. Should I stay and attempt to make this work? Story 4. As I turned 18, I realized my childhood wasn't normal. I need you to go away, my mom cried, and I felt the weight of her grief. After years of comforting her, I wonder, am I repeating this cycle? Is there a mental health struggle hiding in our family? I do not know if this is the right place, but I just wanted to share some observations and thoughts to relieve myself of some concerns, I think. I am 18 years old, male, and have always had and continue to have great respect for my mother. I love her very deeply. However, there have always been issues with her emotions. As a child, my parents often fought and my mother would frequently cry, often to an excessive degree. I would comfort her from as early as the 2nd or 3rd grade, perhaps even earlier, and I still do. I never thought it was unusual. On one hand, I knew it was not an average situation, but it did not seem strange to me to be comforting my mother when I was just 10 years old. She would cry often and loudly, but I believed it was something that many families dealt with, a distant father and a mother who had fallen apart. It was not until I entered a relationship in my sophomore year, at age 15, that I began to develop a new perspective on this matter. My boyfriend was shocked when I told him about comforting my mother as a child and the fighting between my parents, expressing how frightening and devastating it must have been and that it was too much for a child. I thought he was slightly overreacting. He was not there. I always felt it was my duty to comfort my mother. Family is supposed to be there for each other. However, I have started to reflect recently and come to the realization that my mother might have mental health issues or possibly something more significant, or maybe that my experience was not a normal one, having a mother who was constantly falling apart and being comforted by her children. Perhaps I am mistaken, I do not know. Part of this realization began to take shape about 2 years ago after my grandmother, my mother's mother, died. My mother was and still is devastated, and it is painful to witness her suffering. It is understandable. After all, it was her mother, it was sudden, and they were very close, speaking on the phone every day. It has been a challenging time. The reason this has provided me with perspective is that she has been crying even more since then, and during one of those times, she told me that I needed to go away, explaining how much my grandmother had detested my comforting her and how she should not rely on me for that. I remember this too. Once when my grandparents were visiting when I was around 12 years old, my mother started to break down, and when I went to comfort her, my grandmother sent me away. At that time, I believed I was being a bad son, but perhaps my grandmother viewed it as protecting me. I do not know. This realization indicated to me that maybe it was not normal. However, a few weeks ago is when it really struck me. My mother has been attending grief therapy since my grandmother's passing to help her cope. She has been going for 2 years, and while I do not know much about how therapy works, I realize that 2 years to me suggests that there may be something more serious. About half a week ago, my mother broke down again while I was not home. I was informed that it was quite severe and that it had escalated into a huge mess. Afterward, when I expressed concern, she referred to it as having an episode. I know it is a minor choice of words, but it changed my perspective. Previously, I viewed it as her simply feeling sad or overwhelmed, but the term episode made it feel more real, more clinical, and more serious. I have been concentrating on it a lot and wondering if perhaps the experiences I have witnessed my whole life are not ordinary instances of sadness, but rather something genuinely significant. I am not sure why I am fixated on this, since it would not alter my experiences, but I cannot seem to shake the topic from my mind either. Moreover, I am beginning to understand that the emotions I experience at times may not be typical and could possibly be connected to my mother. Certainly, I have observed common threads of insecurity, especially within my relationship. I strive greatly to suppress my feelings, yet it is difficult. I find myself frequently alternating between intense feelings of love and adoration and feelings of hatred, both for him and for myself, and it is distressing. To provide an example from this week, I have been consumed by the sensation that he does not love me, that he does not care about me, and I feel helpless for two reasons. First, I want him to genuinely desire me, telling him to want me defeats the purpose. Second, I do not even know what I want from him. We have been dating for 3 years, and it feels as though he does not love me anymore, but I cannot exactly identify when or why. It is simply an overwhelming feeling I carry. Alongside this is the nagging thought of why he would like me and that I am a terrible person. I become trapped in a toxic cycle. I do not know what ignites it, but it begins and then repeats. A. He does not like or care about me. B. I feel hatred toward him. C. Why would he like me? I am being awful, then back to A again and again, feeling unloved yet unworthy of love while simultaneously demanding it. This all happens internally, but I believe he can sense it. My mood fluctuates, I become irritable, and I sulk. Then, just as suddenly as it begins, it subsides. We were watching the school band perform, and I was upset, having been so beforehand and during, going through that cycle of feeling unloved, becoming angry at him and then at myself. Yet when I attempted to rest my head on his shoulder, feeling tired and wanting to see how he would react in part, I wanted him to reject me to validate my theory that he hated me. He allowed me to. At that moment, the entire cycle vanished, and I shifted to feeling so loved and how wonderful he was, leaving me guilt-ridden for feeling otherwise. However, only 20 to 30 minutes later, it would start all over again. I feel terrible, I believe I am a horrid person, and I simply want to feel secure and loved. This general pattern has characterized much of our relationship. While the intensity has varied, it has become more amplified at times, although it is not always at such an extreme. Perhaps it is stress, though that does not excuse my behavior, which is awful. The reason this relates back to the original topic is an argument between my parents that occurred months ago. My father was ill, and my mother became exceedingly upset with him because it was supposed to be a vacation, and she believed he was faking his illness and ruining her trip. She pushed and pushed until my father left, after which she was devastated and fell apart. She was sobbing to me, expressing her regret for not realizing what she was doing, how she needed him back, and how sorry she was. In that moment, I recognized that I engage in similar behavior within my own relationship. While I do not argue with him or yell at him, I do experience the same emotional struggles. I feel unloved, I become angry and upset thinking about how much I want him out of my life, and then the next moment I realize how much I need him and miss him. I do not want that to be my future. I have been pondering whether I will end up like that. Am I already there? I have been preoccupied with the thought of whether my mother is suffering from some mental health issue or disorder, and if so, whether I am as well and if I should seek help. I am also anxious about next year as I will be attending college in a nearby city. It is not too far away, but I will not be living at home. I am concerned for my mother. I have become the only person she can rely on, and I do not know what will happen when I am gone. She has assured me not to worry and that she will be fine without me, that she wants me to be free, but I feel as though by leaving I am abandoning her. My sister, who lives at home, harbors resentment toward her despite living there rent-free, and my father works until 8 p.m., then consumes alcohol or drugs and passes out. I am anxious. I know she would be disappointed if I stayed, especially because of my sister, but I also feel immense guilt. I realize that this all may seem disorganized. I simply have a lot on my mind, plus advanced placement tests to contend with.